Alrighty, this is, let's see, Tuesday, July 21st, 2020. And one of the things that I've been doing the past, 5 years or so is making what I call photo suites of the streets in Vancouver. I've only done about half a dozen or so, but they always turn out really well because you get to capture basically a walk down a street and all the interesting bits of architecture. I try to avoid people because that's just, I'm more kind of an urban architecture photographer than a urban people photographer. And so today, time to go down to London Drugs to pick up some photos, plus get some sushi at the new Safeway right across the street, and which is pretty good, by the way. I don't get out as much for sushi as I used to, so having something semi-decent in the grocery store has been a bit of a boom. So anyways, what I wanted to do today, and I did, was from my apartment here at Thurlow and Beach Avenues, scooted up and walked down Harwood Street, heading what effectively in the north, in the West End is kind of a northeast direction. That would get me down to Cardero, scoot up Cardero, and I'd be at Davy Street, right where the London Drugs and the new Safeway is. And it was really good. I've been pretty slack with doing infrared photography, so this is the perfect time of year for this type of stuff, the perfect time of day. The sun's high in the sky, it was close to noon, and the leaves are just, of course, completely busted out with leaves, which are ideal for infrared photography because leaves reflect a lot of infrared light, and because they don't need it, they absorb mostly the higher frequencies. That's what chlorophyll does, and it just bounces out the infrared. So anyways, so the idea, the plan was I would go down Harwood on the way there, and then I would pop into Maxine Lane, which is basically one, or rather half a block north of Harwood, because I find these backyard or these back lane areas are not anywhere near as interesting photographically as the main streets and avenues, but they're nice and quirky because you see buildings from behind. So anyways, this is a bizarre story. As I'm tootling along, I get to let's see, where was I? Let's see, Jervis and Maxine Lane, and there was a interesting composition. One of the buildings that I've fallen in love with over the years was constructed, I think, about 10 years or so back, 5 years maybe. It's this oval-shaped building, and it was one of the first to start the kind of whole rebuild of the West End, which is a century-long project for sure, but it was one of the first really new pieces of architecture to go up. So it's oval and shaped, and it has these really weird sliding shutters on it. It almost looks like it's some sort of futuristic launch platform where they seal the building when they launch rockets or something, to head off to Alpha Centauri. So architecturally, it's quite stunning, and on top of that, architecture in infrared is doubly so. It's black and white, high contrast. So anyway, I'm at the corner of Maxine Lane and Jervis Street, taking a picture. And there's this guy, waving this truck saying, go over there and all this sort of stuff. And, the big, huge truck was kind of parking at that intersection, like right across the street. And I waited for them to settle down because I shoot high dynamic range infrared, which means I have to take a sequence of shots, and movement tends to get sort of interferes with the, kind of artistic process and this particular type of media, infrared, high dynamic range. So they settle, boom, they stop, and I take my 3 sequence shots, boom, 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 tootle along, got my headphones on, listening to trance like I always do, booga chicka, booga chicka, booga chicka, and I finally get to the back area of this really cool building. I'd already, when I was on Harwood, I'd taken, front shots and, several. I haven't processed them yet, but I think they're going to look pretty cool because the sun was perfect. It was glinting off the, sort of eastern side of the building, and with these metal shutters that they, jig around for whatever weird purpose. I did notice that these shutters they had little tiny holes in them, so they would certainly shelter the people inside from the sun because they're going to get a ton of sun. But on the flip side, they're going to absorb a ton of heat. So it's like, wow, they must be just bursting the air conditioning to, me personally, I would do something different than architecturally than that, but I'm not an architect, I'm just a photographer. So I'd taken pictures on Harwood, boom bang, and then now I'm at the back just to get kind of rearward view. And it was even cooler because one of the things about infrared photography is it just flashes, it creates a lot of lens flare if you're shooting either directly or even at an angle into the sun. And like I know people avoid lens flares, but me, in infrared black and white, they're just the coolest thing. You can really see the architecture of the lens, and it just adds this outworldly, spacey feel to something that's already, black and white, high dynamic range, outworldly, spacey to begin with. So anyway, I got some great shots. But as I'm doing this guy suddenly, the same guy that I'm pretty sure that was waving the truck around, park here. I'm looking up, taking pictures, and I look down, and he's right there, and he's chatting away, and my earphones are on. Boom, 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 boom. I say, the earphones off. He said, "Sorry, what? Something I can help you with?" And he goes, "What are you taking pictures of?" And boom, I said, "Well, the obvious." I said, "Well, that building right in front of me. I'm taking pictures of what I'm pointing my camera at." And he goes, "Why are you doing that?" And I said, "Well, I'm grasping for a phrase that he might understand." I said, "Well, I'm an urban photographer, and I take a lot of pictures of buildings and the architecture in Vancouver." And he goes, "There's been a lot of break-ins around here." And, click, click, boom. I said, oh, and I said to him, so what you're saying is there are people who are, casing the joint, and me taking pictures worries you that I'm like somebody who's casing the joint to do a break-in. And he goes, I deal with a VPD, Vancouver Police Department, and I've taken your picture. And I said, well, that's cool. I introduced myself. I said, I'm Doug Farmer. I'm an urban photographer. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. And he goes, I don't do any of that social media shit. And it's like, oh, okay. And I was about to say, but then I always said, well, this conversation is kind of starting to percolate, so I'm going to keep it low key. But I was going to say, well, why are you so paranoid if you're not on social media? I thought the main driver for paranoia these days was Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Donald Trump, all this sort of stuff. But I didn't go there. But I did say, wow, you're a bit paranoid. And he says, I got your picture. And I said, hey, I mind if I take your picture? And he goes, sure. And he had one of these kind of cheap cloth masks on me. I had my stylish, $14, cloth mask, gray toned, in my pocket. I don't wear it when I'm walking in the street. I'm not that paranoid. But he was out in the street and he was paranoid. Paranoid, but he's wearing a cheap mask. I mean, fuck, guy. If you're going to worry about COVID, at least sink, $15 into a decent mask. The one I have actually has an N95 filter in it, so it protects other people from me if I'm asymptomatic. And it also protects me because 70% of the people in Vancouver these days do not wear masks, even inside shopping. And 1% wear masks, like this John guy, outside. So anyways, I get my iPhone out and I pointed at him, I said, okay, want to take your mask off? He goes, no. And I asked him his name and he said John something. And I wish if I had this all to do over again, one of the things that I would do is start video recording rather than the moment this type of confrontational situation occurs, which, by the way, are extremely rare. I've been taking urban photography. I've been doing urban photography in Vancouver since I came here. Taking shots of Yaletown before it was Yaletown, and night, day, the whole 9 yards. Mostly day because I'm an old guy and I don't the idea of going out at 12 o'clock at night, especially nowadays because things are so stressful and crazy because of the pandemic. I don't do a lot of night stuff. But during those 25 years I've been taking photographs in downtown Vancouver, I've only been confronted by a person once before. So 25 years, John, whoever you are, you're fortunately a rarity. You and one other guy, so basically once every 12 years, I've been confronted by somebody taking pictures. The other guy, this was on the Burrard Street Bridge, and I was doing night shots, had a tripod, the whole 9 yards. I didn't want people in my shots, but this guy was just shuffling along. He was way off in the distance. Boom, boom, boom. I took a couple of pictures. But as he came closer, I stopped taking pictures of the guy because I didn't want people in my picture. I didn't want him. So I'm sitting there, yeah, okay. Pedal to the metal guy, like it's night and I want to get back in and process these photographs. You're just sloughing along. So he gets up to me, he says, "Did you take your picture of me?" And I said, "No, I didn't want you in the shot." He goes, "Oh, okay." And then he shuffles off, and that was it. So anyway, this John guy was orders of magnitude better. So, bottom line, as a urban photography, you have a legal right to take pictures of buildings. You do not have the legal right to enter like a foyer of a building without permission of the owner or the landlord or the building manager and take pictures. You don't. That's perfectly acceptable. I can't, for example, if you take pictures in Safeway while grocery shopping, you're actually violating the rights of the owner of the Safeway store. So it's something to keep in mind. You also, if you walk on the front lawn of somebody's private residence, you're not permitted to take pictures, and that's completely fine as well. But if you're in a friggin' back lane in downtown Vancouver shooting cool architecture, a guy like John does not have the right to confront you. And if the confrontation escalates, you do, I'm pretty sure, depending on how crazy it got, you would have the right to call 911 and have the police come and sort it out. I'm fairly certain this guy, the poor guy, he's been broken into, and he said, "I've been broken into." And I said, "Well, look, I've been here 30 years, well, 25, and I've been broken into 3 times. And I know it sucks, but I also wanted to say to him, you always think of these things after the fact, right? I also wanted to say to him, look, if you're so fucking paranoid about living in a big city, maybe you should move to Kelowna or something. Because bottom line, after the 3rd time I was broken into my car, I said, and had to pay like $300 because the deductible is higher than that, interestingly enough. Which makes sense because the insurance companies don't want to pay for replacing all these broken windows. So yeah, 2 smashes, and one, my windows, was shot. My car was shot. Somebody must have had a 22 or something, and boom, it didn't shatter one window, but the window it exited from it was, but the entry, little teeny little hole. So after that, those 3 experiences, I said, screw it, I'm never going to lock my car again. I'm not going to keep anything of value in it. So if you're in the big city and you do get broken into, spend a couple of $1,000 on getting a better security system, get a door jamb, become aware of your neighborhoods, and most importantly, do not confront urban photographers in laneways, because I'm a nice guy, but there are other guys who are not as predisposed to have low-key, keep it calm conversations. And doing something like confronting strangers in the city, you are definitely taking the life in your hands. So, poor guy, I feel bad for him. But anyways, what he's basically doing is that if there's a break-in, he's going to talk to the VPD and say, "Hey, I got a picture of this guy's taking pictures." And if I do get confronted and this thing escalates from that, I'm going full-bore civil suit on the guy. Life in the big city. Hot time, summer in the city. Anyway, stay safe.